most people are going to fail this year because they don't actually understand that there's a very simple process to creating a long-lasting change in your life. And I'm going to talk to you about that today because I think it's incredibly important. And the only reason that I know this is because it's actually the same process that I use to change my life. And so I'm going to break that down for you today because I want you to have a successful year. In fact, I want you to have the best year of your life. I also want to have the best year of my life. And so I'm leveraging the same exact tools I'm about to give you in my own life because let me tell you this, my life is not perfect. Sometimes it's a complete disaster and sometimes it's amazing, right? And I think that getting to the crux of who we are is how we create change. So I'm going to break down with you today. It's called the Unbroken Methodology. It's really a shorthand for this 3-step process that internally I call the AAA. And what I'm going to break down is step by step by step, how you actually create a transformation in your life on a daily basis that's actually more simple than you might think. And so you begin first with this idea of called Awaken and Accept, right? So we're going to talk about the AAAs. The first is kind of like a double, right? So you get 2 for 1 on this one. So it's Awaken and Accept. Awaken is this idea that you look at your life and you start to really see what's true, not the reality that you believe you live in, but the reality that you actually live in. And what's so difficult about that is it means you have to take off the blinders and take a real acknowledgement and awakening to the truth of where you're at, whatever is happening in your life, whether that's good or bad. Generally speaking, most people don't want to change anything about their life until it becomes bad. So let's assume that you're listening to this or watching this and you're in this place right now where things are not working. Just nothing is going in your direction. You need to wake up. And this means taking a really hard look at the life that you're in right now. And not pretending that the bed is made and that the car is clean and that you're going to the gym and that you're eating well and that all the things that you know you're supposed to be doing, you're doing. Stop pretending that you're not. And this is where that bonus comes in. It's called acceptance. And acceptance, it can be tricky because people can look at acceptance and go, I accept it. It is what it is. I guess I'm stuck like this. And that's a very dangerous place to be because that effectively is going to keep you in this loop where nothing's going to become different. So acceptance is really looking at your life and saying, okay, this is actually true. This is factual. This is something that's happening. I had this same conversation with my therapist just last night about some things in my life that are very true, about the way I'm maneuvering in the world right now, about the way that I'm showing up, about the stuckness that I feel, about confidence shift that I've been working through. But acceptance for me isn't I accept it, I will do nothing about it. Acceptance is I accept it, this is true, how do I create a change? This is where you move into part 2, and that is this idea about anchor. So this is the second A in the AAA. Anchor. Anchor means to be attached to something other than you in this process. Anchor and anchoring is the idea of you recognizing that you also need to be a part of something else and with other people in order for these changes to actually start to take place. Because if you keep trying to do things on your own, you're going to stay stuck. This is why I highly recommend you have a coach, you have a therapist, you have a support group, you have people in your life. You cannot do this alone. And I have coached thousands and thousands of people over the years, and I can tell you the truth, none of them were as successful before coming into coaching. And I'm not taking this as like my victory. I'm just saying they had support, they had accountability, they had somebody else with them. And so that begins with asking for help. This is the same thing I had to do when I was at rock bottom at 26 years old. I started asking for help. At 30 years old, I asked for help. At 35 years old, I asked for help. At 40, I asked for help. You have to ask for help. Here's the hard part. You have to let your guard down in order to do it. And that means people have to see you. And that can be super scary. But when you do that, what happens is now you get to actually do something called take accountability. And accountability is such a powerful tool because it gives you the ability to account for what is happening in your life. And when you do that, Generally speaking, it's going to inspire you more deeply to invest in yourself. There's an acronym that I created years ago called T.E.E.M. You've probably heard me say it. T-E-E-M, time, effort, energy, money. In order to change your life, you are going to have to invest T.E.E.M, time, effort, energy, or money. Generally speaking, in order to see a transformation, you're going to have to see one, but you're probably going to have to invest all four. And so start where you are. Sometimes time is reading a book, listening to a podcast like this, watching a YouTube video, hitting the journal. Energy is like, how are you showing up in the world? Where are you putting your effort? Where is it that you're showing up every single day? Effort, like, look, here's the thing. Time, effort, energy, money, all of these things have one thing in common. They are you physically doing something for the betterment of your life. And then money, look, I'm telling you, I know it sounds weird and people are like, well, if the world is supposed to be this world of people helping each other, why would we have to spend money to get help? Well, when you go to the grocery store, you spend money to buy bread. When you go to the gas station, you spend money to get gas. When you go to anywhere, you spend money to get anything. And that is the nature of the world that we live in. And when you put money in the game, it makes you more invested. And then finally, what you have to look at is this idea of the AAA, which is the most important, which is actualization. And actualization is about you becoming the person that you know you're capable of being. It's pulling the future into today. It's looking at your life in this moment and saying to yourself, I will be the person I want to be. And actualization is when you stand up and you go about the world in honesty, vulnerability, and as the person that you believe you are, not the person you're pretending to be, right? And this requires you, first and foremost, you're going to have to set goals that pull you into being that person. Most people do not set the appropriate level of goal to create change in their life. And what I mean by that is you have to stretch yourself. It's got to be difficult. It has to be difficult to the point of discomfort, not to the point of impossible. And this is a huge mistake that people make. You're not going to be 5 foot tall dunking in the NBA. Not going to happen, right? But it's the same as like you're not going to be a professional bodybuilder if you're 200 pounds overweight. Not going to happen, right? But what you can say is, can I get in the game? How do I participate? How do I show up? Maybe if I'm not a player, maybe I'm a coach. Maybe if I'm not, a bodybuilder, maybe I'm just really healthy going to the gym every day, right? And it's about pulling yourself into the direction for the betterment of your life. And what this actually creates is this anchor, going back to kind of the beginning of this whole conversation, around the idea that you have to live like someone who cares about themselves. Because if you set a giant goal, but you are not living like a person who wants that goal, you will never accomplish that goal, right? So if you're like, I want to run a marathon and you don't train, you will not run a marathon. If you're like, I want to heal the trauma in my life because it's impacting my money and my relationships and my sex and my friendships and my career, and you don't have a coach or a therapist or finish podcasts like these or go to events and conferences and try to level up and live like a person who wants to heal, you never will. And that means doing the little things the right way. More often than not, it's like, yo, did you get up on time? Did you eat breakfast? Did you take your medicine? Did you go for a walk? Did you hit the journal? Did you meditate? Did you go to work and actually give your effort? When you're with your partner, are you showing up for them or are you distracted by your phone? When you're with your children, are you trying to lead? When you're in the car, are you getting mad at people for no reason? Like there's so many questions you have to ask yourself. And then finally, it's really about getting in the game. Right? You're living it, but now it really comes into this thing where it becomes its lifestyle, where day in and day out, no matter what, you're showing up, even on the hard days, especially on the hard days, and especially on the days that you don't want to do it. Because I can promise you, there are days where I'm just like, I don't want to do any of this, none of it. And there is something about forcing yourself through doing it that creates this amazing change in your life. Because effectively what you're doing is you are showing yourself what you are capable of having and what you're capable of doing. And it's easy to quit on yourself, but it's much, much more difficult to show up and to actually get in the game and to actualize yourself. If you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, self-actualization is the number one need that we have as humans. And all of this, I will wrap up with a bow, begins with you being honest. And in this year, in this moment, in this day, I dare you from this moment forward to tell the truth every single day. To show up in honesty and vulnerability and to tell the truth and to not hide who you are. Because if you're willing to do that, everything about your life will be different. All of it will be different. So that's it, my friends. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed it, please leave a review, hit subscribe, tell a friend. And until next time, be unbroken. I'll see ya.